Welcome back to the superhero movie retrospective. Before we start, I must say, I thought the performance of the previous episode was shockingly low. Now that's not enough to deter me from doing the things I feel passionate about, and this retrospective could get more popular by the end like the DCAU one did, but still, I was stunned by the low performance last time regardless. Again, I must remind, I don't intend to cover every superhero movie ever made, and then be here for an eternity, so no, I'm not talking about Batman 66 or live-action TV stuff like the 1950s George Reeves Superman, which I could barely watch one episode of. What I want to talk about is the journey of superhero movies, and to jump right into today's topic, Tim Burton's Batman duology. I think a recap is in order. Last time we discussed Richard Donner's Superman the movie of 1978, one of the most important American-made films of all time. Then discussed the popular Superman 2 through the lens of the Richard Donner cut, the abysmal Superman 3, but most importantly, in 1987, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace was released to scathing reception. Rightfully so, the movie was just god-awful. I still felt worse watching Superman 3, but that's neither here nor there. When you have movies like Superman 3 or Superman 4, you just think to yourself, was Superman 1 a fluke? I mean, Superman 2 even had corny stuff in it. Well, the world was given the answer to that question just 2 years after Superman 4 crashed and burned. As in 1989, the film industry was given Tim Burton's Batman, also known as Batman '89, the darkest, most edgy mainstream superhero movie released at the point. But the movie was fighting an uphill battle. I don't like to go too much into development history when making reviews anymore, as not all videos need to follow a strict formula, but it's worth mentioning that Batman '89 wasn't just expected by all to be a masterpiece. First, there was the fact that Superman 3 and Superman 4 were so bad that it just set the stage that WB could not possibly be trusted to give us quality movies, but there was also drama over Batman himself. To get into that, we must first go over where Batman was as a pop culture icon in the late 80s. In the eyes of the comic book fans, this decade saw Batman getting a lot more serious with stories like The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns, which was the tone fans were expecting the movie to carry. However, to the general audience, the perspective people had towards Batman was still that his character was this campy action hero as seen in the 1960s Adam West Batman show, which was so popular that it got its own movie. Michael Keaton was cast as Batman, which inspired losers, I mean fans, to send thousands of letters to WB in protest. Back when you had to send letters over how you were concerned the movie was going to be in the style of Adam West, as Keaton was a comedic actor for the most part. All the naysayers were silenced when the movie came out, made bank, and changed superhero movies yet again. Before we get into that, let's just jump ahead several decades and discuss how we're going to view this movie in 2020. The Superman movies just are what they are, and have only been released a couple times over the decades. But with this being Batman, he's obviously more popular, so I gotta make something clear from the offset. I'm reviewing all these old Batman and Superman movies on this, the Batman and Superman 9-film collection that contains Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, and Returns from 2006, as well as Batman, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin. For the Batman movies, I'm pretty sure these discs are just reprints of the individual Blu-ray releases, but still. I point this out because in 2019, the 4K Blu-ray editions of Batman through Batman and Robin were released. I picked these up assuming that they would review them for the best quality footage, but I was wrong. I mean, these are the most convenient for modern day buyers, and they do have nice special features, so what's wrong with it? Well, it's the same movies at the end of the day, with uniform packaging no less, however they made a change I just can't wrap my mind around. Plain and simple, it looks like they went into the movie's files and changed the color balance to where bluish green had more presence than red. I just worded that very poorly, but you're seeing the footage on the screen, you know what I mean. It's no lie, all 4 movies have this crap on the 4K discs. I'd rather watch the DVD versions over this. It's just straight up ugly. As for the sound, they decided to replace the old gun sound effects that, while yes, were cheesy, but they fit with the grainy quality footage of the movie. But in the 4K versions, the guns have these realistic modern sound effects that stick out like a sore thumb in these 80s and 90s movies. Now, with that all out of the way, let's get back to the actual movie. Superman the movie proved that you can make really compelling stories in popular movies with superhero characters. They didn't need to be crappy popcorn movies for children. Batman proves the same thing, but this movie had an even grander effect on superhero stuff that lined the pockets of executives for years to come. The power of advertising. Seriously, this cannot be understated. Batman '89 was made in the world after the Star Wars trilogy had just showed how critical it is to movie success to have a powerful advertising campaign. Like, Star Wars memorabilia was everywhere in the late 70s and early 80s. It wasn't just the movies. Superman was a great movie, but the aim with Batman was to make a great movie everyone wanted to see. But if that wasn't enough, this was a movie you were going to see literally every day. Batman action figures, Batman posters, Batman clothes, Batman games for the NES, the most popular console at the time, Batman cereal, and most importantly,
we'll make billions! We'll sell Ratchet action figures, Ratchet sports shoes, Ratchet deodorant, Ratchet breakfast cereal, earmuffs and cologne, soft drinks, hard drinks, energy drinks, breath mints. You get record deals, movie rights, reality shows, video games, and commercials.
Yeah, commercials for this thing were everywhere, endlessly playing the iconic theme tune by Danny Elfman. And the movie even had a song from Prince, one of the major musical superstars of the era, which got its own music video, but was also the main theme of one of the film's most iconic scenes as the Joker tears up a museum. So whether you're interested in this movie or not, you were gonna see it everywhere, whether you wanted to or not. I've seen Batman 89 like over 4 times in the 7 years I've owned it, last having watched it in 2015. I didn't do YouTube then, Christ, where does the time go? I have not been compelled to watch Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin at all since 2013, so what will I think of them? And by that I mean what will I think of Batman Returns, as the last two just suck. You might be asking yourself, why my take on the original Batman film continuity is 2 videos with the Burton stuff today and the Schumacher stuff next time as opposed to 1 video like we did for Superman? Well, it's because this retrospective is less about the characters and specific continuities than it is about superhero movies as a whole. The last 2 Superman movies were hot garbage, but as far as the era of superhero movies are concerned, I consider the first 4 Superman movies to be part of the same status quo, where Superman was the dominant hero, played by Chris Reeve, with the same John Williams horns blasting in the background. The Tim Burton Batman movies changed that status quo, but Batman Returns' audience response also changed things, leading to the last 2 movies, which also had a profound impact on the superhero movies that we can explore next time. Batman was played by different actors in those, the music is different, the world looks completely different. The Burton and Schumacher movies are in the same continuity, but you'd barely notice if you actually watched the movies. But enough of the overly long J-Reviews intros. Time to get into Batman the movie. Akin to John Williams' Superman score, Danny Elfman composed the soundtrack for Batman, and this soundtrack is absolutely excellent. I thought Superman's music was good, but outside the main theme, it wasn't especially memorable. Starting with the main theme, Batman's leitmotif is quite memorable. It's distinguished from Superman's as his theme was adventurous, bombastic, optimistic, and so on. Batman's carries many of these same traits with a more gothic edge, which is present throughout the whole soundtrack. There is so much atmosphere in this music to where it's just memorable stuff. I can't play any of it because I actually want to earn revenue on this video. They're just gonna have to take my word for it that when criminals start running and this happens, you know ass is about to get kicked. I love how this movie opens. Going into the first serious Batman movie, who knows how it's gonna start? Superman was the origin story, so can we expect that? Well, it opens in this husband and wife with their son walking in the street about to cut through the alley. But these people can't be the Waynes, right? They need a map and are trying to get a taxi. Well, they get jumped, but not killed. This was indeed a fake out, as this scene takes place in a world where Batman's already active, and this Batman tries to act like a mythical creature, intentionally pretending to get knocked down by the bullets only to rise like a ghoul.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
So, what's the plot this time? Well, Bruce Wayne is Batman, taking the tragedy of his parents' murder to fight crime with an assortment of skills and gadgets. Jack Napier is set up by his boss to be captured or killed at Axis Chemicals for being with his woman on the side. A fight with Batman results in Jack falling into a vat of acid, transforming into the criminal mastermind, the Joker. Meanwhile, famous photographer Vicky Vale is in town to investigate this Bat character that thrashes criminals, as Knox is the only other reporter who thinks Batman is real. Vicky Vale is no Lois Lane, though. The qualities I said about her character, independence, wit, and all that is basically void here. Vicky Vale's most defining quality is thus. But she's not a bad character, just a cliche. Vale gets romantically involved with Bruce Wayne, discovering how he's quite the complex and mysterious character getting wrapped up in his double life and becoming a target of the Joker. And that's basically it for what the whole movie is about. Superman the movie was the definitive, timeless telling of Superman's origin, but Batman 89, when you look at it, isn't really telling the story of Batman, how he came to be and how the status quo was created. Instead, Batman just already exists. The only explanation the film does of Batman's origin is so Vicky Vale can learn it, and so that the film can tie the origin to the movie's actual main character, the Joker. But let me pump brakes on that. Batman is played by Michael Keaton. Bring up Superman for the millionth time today. Christopher Reeve was Superman. I mean, look at him. It's Superman. Now, this does a lot to do with hindsight, but I think Christian Bale is the definitive screen Batman. And when going back to Keaton's performance in the role, I don't quite get that same magic I got from Christopher Reeve as Superman. That doesn't mean he's bad. For the first serious screen adaptation of Batman, I think the visual design, the Batsuit, and really the whole trashy, gothic aesthetic that the city has is a really good job complementing the character, his story, and the incredible soundtrack. But anyway, Michael Keaton does what any great Batman actor should. Bruce Wayne and Batman feel like two different people, like how in the animated universe, Bruce was this dopey, normal rich guy but could snap to being serious, business-oriented Batman as soon as everyone was out of the room. What I'm getting at is, Keaton does a really good job in this movie, but there are two problems. One, in my opinion, the movie doesn't really focus on Batman enough to see what really makes him tick, and moreover, the kind of Batman he's playing is just different than, say, the DCAU or the Dark Knight trilogy. This version of Bruce Wayne is, if I were to describe it in any way, an eccentric weirdo. Like at this party, Vicky Vale asks him if he knows which one of these guys Bruce Wayne is, and he says he doesn't know. While we're on that scene, I should mention I really do like Michael Gough as Alfred. He doesn't have much dimension in this one, but I love this party scene as Bruce just leaves all his stuff all over the place, and Alfred's always there to pick it up. As for Bruce's Batman persona, I already said I love the costume, and while it is impractically designed and made of rubber, I think it's cool. When Batman got a new costume in The Dark Knight, this was for a real reason outside of looking cool. The costume is designed for Batman 89, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, and even Batman Begins all suffer from the inability of whichever actor was inside to turn his neck. So whenever Batman looks around at any of these movies, his whole body turns and not just his head. Again, completely impractical, but I think it looks cool nonetheless, especially in this movie, and also for Begins, I guess, where Batman's early enough in his career that he wants to portray himself as an otherworldly figure. Moving in a way that looks unnatural to humans adds to the effect. What really makes this version of Batman divisive amongst fans, though, is the one major deviation this film has from most other modern versions of Batman. This Batman has absolutely zero problem murdering people. Like, he doesn't go out of his way to do it, but he doesn't feel bothered by it. Allow me to explain my stance on this. I would agree with the larger fan base that says Batman's no-killing policy is a very fundamental aspect to his character. My favorite version of Batman was the one from the DCAU, you know, Batman the Animated Series, Superman TAS, Justice League, Batman Beyond, etc. This is my favorite version because he is a very complex character that goes through quite a wide variety of different situations. But he sticks to his moral principles even in his worst moments, like in episodes of the New Batman Adventures. So if I was writing a Batman story, which, dear lord, let's hope that never happens, I'd be a terrible story writer, my Batman wouldn't run up to the Joker and say,
"I'm gonna kill you."
Nor would he send the Batmobile into a factory filled with people, drop a pellet out of the tire that makes the whole place go. That's just not the kind of Batman I like to see, hence why I prefer Bale's Batman over Keaton's. But that has far more to do with the writing and direction than the actual acting. However, I'm not the kind of purist that thinks Batman can never kill in any incarnation. Now, I'm not insulting you if you do think that way, as it makes sense to me. No killing is part of what makes Batman interesting. Finding other ways to get through situations, like the climax of the Killing Joke story, wouldn't work if Batman just decided to kill Joker. If you showed BTAS Batman shooting somebody in the face with a gun, that is an incredibly out-of-character move, and if it took place well before the Beyond opening, then that's an instant fail for that storyline in my opinion. When it's a different version, it's down to the execution rather than the concept. In this movie, Batman killing people is pretty over the top, but I really like the movie and its visual design, atmosphere, and music. It just feels like a comic book movie. Maybe not the most direct translation of Batman himself, but still I can't help but love the movie anyway, even if I wouldn't have Batman blow people up. Now, like I said in Superman, what good is a hero without a villain? Jack Nicholson is excellent as the Joker, and he got big bucks to be in the movie. Like, the kind of big bucks we're talking about is thus. My buying this 4K copy of Batman and Robin pays Jack Nicholson. Maybe not literally, but I mean, he made money on all 4 of these movies, 3 of which he had nothing to do with. Now, that's not to say this was a cash-in project for him. He nails the role. Like, look at him. It looks like the Joker left off the page of the comic books and onto the screen. The voice, the costume, and makeup design, it's all there. Heath Ledger will go down in history as one of the best movie villains of all time, but if we're just looking at how to do a comic book Joker in a movie, this is definitely the model. It's just so fun seeing Jack Nicholson act like a complete idiot. I love it. But that doesn't stop him from being menacing at the same time, like murdering his old boss, or this guy in the street.
Time to pay the check.
I say the movie's about the Joker because he's the character that goes through the most development, and he's also the driver of the plot. Like, Lex Luthor didn't even meet Superman until the movie was almost over. But Jack Napier is dropped into the vat of chemicals by Batman on accident, turning him into the Joker. He kills his old boss, takes over his empire, kills the competition, causes a pharmaceutical crisis that takes the city by storm, unleashing laughing gas upon everyone in the city, and tries to get in with Vicky Vale, capturing her by the end of the movie. This movie is Batman 89, but from start to finish, it's the story of the Joker. As even the elements of the movie that are about Batman's origin, like I said earlier, also tie into the Joker, as he was the one who killed the Waynes in this timeline. This is one of the areas of the movie I think is pretty weak. As established with the no-killing stuff, I don't think being different is bad, but I think linking Batman and the Joker through their origins is just too coincidental. It also means that Batman was seeking to avenge his parents by being Batman. He kills the Joker by the end, so mission accomplished, I guess. That was basically the only part of the movie I actually didn't like, because I thought the rest of it was great. Yeah, I'm surprised to say. I went into thinking I would enjoy it, but take big issue with Batman not being the center of the story and him killing and all that, but I loved watching this movie. I didn't mind any of those tinier issues, and I thought this movie stayed consistent throughout. Well, I guess the comedy didn't land for me outside of the Joker.
King of the Wicker People.
Superman the movie was excellent until the very end, where the climax is just a Deus Ex Machina mess. Batman never has problems like that, ending with the status quo firmly set up for more sequels to come. So the big question is, which is better, Superman 78 or Batman 89? I really have a tough time answering that question because Superman told an epic story until the end. It was actually about Superman and it had mind-blowing effects in its day. Batman tells a smaller scale story, has cool practical effects of the Batmobile, like this part where the car needs to be grappled onto a rail to turn a corner at high speed. This movie just has a crap ton of style in it. The focus on Joker doesn't really bother me since I thought his character was great, and the climax and ending were also really well done. Having said that, I think Superman the movie is the more monumental film, but I'd actually rather rewatch Batman. It's not as long, it sticks the landing better, and it's just a joyous blockbuster to watch, even all these decades later. Now, that doesn't answer the question of which is better, but it does tell you which one I liked more at the end of the day. Like I said at the beginning, Batman 89 showed off just how strong a movie could perform if you pump it full of advertising, recognizable actors, music, and release a plethora of merchandise. The largest effect I think this movie had in superhero stuff was that, for a while, if you were going to do a superhero movie, you gotta have a game, and while that's not really the case anymore, you do have to have action figures, posters, t-shirts, and commercials. It's a staple of superhero marketing, and it dates back to this movie. Not a perfect film, but a really impactful one that I still think holds up several decades later. Being such a hit, it obviously led to the sequels, first of which being 1992's Batman Returns. I mean, when you have a hit like Batman was, you have to make a sequel. But the studios trusted Burton enough to completely do this one without restriction. This was a mistake, not because of the movie's quality, but because of WB's bottom line. Batman Returns was not the hit that Batman 89 was. This movie is a lot darker than the first one, a lot less optimistic, a lot less energetic, most importantly, a lot more violent. Times really have changed because these days superhero movies doing this stuff is kind of no surprise at all, but the parents of the early 90s didn't want to take their kids en masse to see the new Batman movie. Now, enough people saw it for it to be a big hit, but not the kind of success WB had in mind. They spent quite a lot in the advertising of this movie as well. Batman was just set up to be one of the big pop culture icons of the 1990s. As to tie into the release of Batman Returns, the small screen was gifted Batman the Animated Series, a serious cartoon meant to really dive into the material and character, a show that decades later is remembered more fondly than the movies that it was spawned from. But I think you all know my take on BTAS, no need to dwell. Now let's get into the movie. First, I know this is a nitpick, not a surprise coming from me, but I have to say it, I hate the title of this movie. Like, not actually hate with Venom like Sly 4 or something, it's just that the title bugs me when I think about this movie. The film is called Batman Returns, but when you watch the movie, you realize that Batman doesn't do any returning throughout the 2-hour runtime. It's pretty much just called Batman Returns because in a meta sense, Batman is returning to theaters. So buy a ticket, buy your popcorn, sit your ass in the theater, take your kids, take your grandparents, and don't forget to buy Batman Returns the video game on SNES, or your console of choice, or all of them, we don't mind. Don't forget the poster and the action figures and go watch BTAS when the school day's over. But ignoring that marketing hoopla, let's talk about the actual film. This is probably the weirdest Batman movie ever made. The big thing with this one was that it was about the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin. Much like the Joker in Batman 89, Penguin and Catwoman's stories are the main drivers of the plot. I say stories because Batman Returns is about a lot of different stuff. The Penguin and Catwoman just so happen to become villains at the same time. The Penguin's backstory is how the film opens, and you're like, what the hell is going on? This rich man is in another room as they're so rich that they're giving birth to their son in their own home instead of a hospital. But the baby is a disgusting monster, literally born evil, killing the family cat. So instead of looking at each other and wondering how their genes mixing produce a bird-like monster baby, they just go for a stroll in the park, make sure no one's looking, and dump him in the water. Batman Returns.
They're rich. You know why they're so odd? Because they can afford to be.
A corporate tycoon played by Christopher Walken named Max Schreck is trying to build up a new power plant in Gotham to bring home the bacon for decades to come. It will be his legacy, but he needs people like the mayor and Bruce Wayne on board. Selena Kyle is his secretary, and when she finds his secret files showing how bad his plans are...
I mean, it's not like you can just kill me.
Actually, it's a lot like that. Huh?
You know, for a second there, you really frightened me.
Yeah, that. But cats then bring her back to life, erasing her inhibitions, creating Catwoman. Earlier, Shrek was captured by the Penguin, and they team up as Shrek, putting Penguin in the position to run for mayor and gain Gotham's city support would allow for Max's project to go through. And I'm kind of having trouble describing the story here since there are numerous elements at play and subplots going around. So let's just cut to the part where I tell you what I think of the movie. Actually, this is a post-production update I'm recording while I was editing this video. A serious problem with Batman Returns, I think the movie's biggest problem, is that this movie is overloaded with plot. Like, there are like a million subplots in this movie, and the villain plot from the Penguin especially, like, changes every 30 minutes. Like, he wants to become the mayor, he tries to kill the Ice Princess, he tries to take over the Batmobile and kill a bunch of people, and like, when his like richness scheme, his mayor scheme fail, he tries to kill a bunch of babies, Batman stops that, and then he shoots off rockets and stuff. It's just to blow up penguins. It's just, there's so much crap in this movie. It's barely really one story. It's a crap ton of stories in one movie. But back to what I was saying. Even though the villains are still the main driving force of the story, Batman, to my surprise, got much more attention as far as the story was concerned. Going into this, I wasn't really sure what I thought of this movie, as I haven't seen it since I first bought the DVD in 2013. You know, when you're 12 years old and buying Batman Returns for $5 at a bookstore is a big deal. I thought it was good, but too long. In general, I have a hard time watching movies because a lifetime of video games has made it so that sitting still and watching a movie for 2 uninterrupted hours inevitably bores the shit out of me because I want to be moving my hands to do something. But that has not stopped me from saying negative things about this movie in the past.
This last paragraph alone is the reason this is a better movie than Batman 89 and Batman Returns combined. I mean, I haven't watched Returns in full for like 4 years now, but I have watched Batman 89 a few times. Those films are really entertaining from start to finish, but the thing is, this is a movie about something. This movie has a character arc for Batman. This story is his story first and foremost. It's not a villain of the week formula. That's not to say the first 2 Batman films don't have a story and don't have character arcs, because they do, but the novelty of Batman on screen feels like it was more important than the story.
Yes, I said all the pre-Begins live-action Batman movies were not really about anything greater. While Batman Returns isn't art house levels of complexity, there is a story here. I like how Bruce Wayne gets more screen time here as a businessman denying Shrek's project. It's really good. The film owns up to the fact that Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale just had nothing in common and the relationship didn't work out. The classic element of tragedy in the Batman-Catwoman dynamic is here. This is finally a woman that Bruce Wayne can understand and relate to, and the same is true on the flip side for Selina Kyle, but she's both unhinged and a criminal, which creates a barrier that Batman can't look past, as much as he wishes he could. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman was really great. I like the idea of a traditional Catwoman as seen at BTAS more, but this crazy Catwoman that made her costume out of all garbage bags is really played well. The acting is great. I say because she convincingly switches from a nervous secretary to a fully liberated crazy woman on a dime, and you really buy it.
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
But this has nothing on the inspired casting of Danny DeVito as the Penguin. I mean, who else could you think of to do the job? And he plays this insane version of the character really well. I love his speeches to the masses. He plays to the people's inherent need to feel good about themselves by pitying him. But Batman exposes him in a highly epic fashion, prompting Penguin to ask the question every speech giver should be asking.
Why is there always someone who brings eggs and tomatoes to a speech?
The costume and makeup design is also fantastic on Penguin. He just looks so gross, and I love it. If you were curious just how micromanaging WB was, the TNBA designs of Penguin and Catwoman were what the DCAU creators always wanted to do with those characters, but they were forced to make them resemble Batman Returns more, as that was the new movie. But back to how nasty the Penguin is.
My nose could be gushing blood.
I didn't just play that scene to make you cover your eyes unexpectedly. I played it because I think that was the scene from this movie that I think was emblematic of Batman Returns changing the course of superhero movie history. Because like I said, this movie's violent. Credit to the people making the action scenes, as with such stiff costumes, they still made cool looking effects in action. Back on target though, while I'm against Soccer Mom pandering as I thought Ninja Turtles 2 ruined all the great stuff from the original, a film I think is perfect for kids, mind you. But in the case of Batman Returns, when Penguin bites somebody's nose, causing blood to spew everywhere, Catwoman scratching this guy's face apart, Batman's dropping a bomb to this guy's chest. Wait, what? Does a Batman movie need to be so violent? Like, does Batman really need to drop a lift that twists the Batmobile around so we can light somebody on fire? I don't think so. But yeah, the violence aspect of this film was one of the bigger takeaways from it at the time of the release, which is what led to the Burton Batman series being cut short. From a narrative perspective, I thought Returns did a lot of interesting things both narratively and visually, as Arkham Origins also showed. A Christmas atmosphere just worked really well for Batman stuff. However, the reception this movie got inspired WB to want to take the Batman film franchise in a completely different direction. The plan wasn't to make a new continuity per se, but to start over with a tone and aesthetic. It's a shame, since revisiting this version of the character taught me that yeah, it's not how I would rate Batman in his universe myself, but I really liked the Burton and Keaton Batman duology a lot more than I thought I was going to. I don't think that either are the genre-busting classics that Superman 1 was, but I think these films are just as good as to watch, if not better. I honestly like both of these movies more than Superman 2, also not something I was expecting. To go back to where I started this, doing Batman Forever and Batman and Robin in this video would make sense, but given the fact that I think those two movies had a different effect on superhero movies in response to the feedback that Batman Returns had, I think a separate video is justified. Having said that, this is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. I think it's annoying to have to ask these questions, but a lot of people, myself included, just innocently hover over channels we watch but don't subscribe to. And YouTube's algorithm is a fickle beast, to say the least. So every little thing helps to get the word out about the channel. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.